I went to jail while the child molester never spent a day in jail. Hi everybody, I'm Gigi and I'm going to pick up where I left off on the last video. So after I got out of jail on the $5,000 bond, I'll tell you, I was being charged with interference with custody by a parent, which is just a fancy name for kidnapping your own child, which is a felony. And my husband, who did the child molesting, nothing happened to him, ever. Not even to this day. So, anyway, so I got out of jail, and it was about a year between the time I got out of jail and my actual trial. And I was living with my mother in a different state while waiting for trial, because I had no place to stay in the state where this happened. Because when I left with my daughter to go to Mexico, I took what I could in the back of my truck and I left all my belongings in my apartment. Yeah, I had nothing and I had nowhere to stay. So I had to travel back and forth to see my daughter every month. I had to also come back for, I don't know, some kind of hearings and whatnot before the trial actually started. So I flew, the distance every time I had to go back. And so at my trial, the judge, before my trial, this was at one of these hearings, she would not allow the doctor's report in as evidence that I had a reason to take my daughter and protect her. So, I mean, I still have that doctor's report to this day, and that was like 29 or 30 years ago. And yeah, she wouldn't allow it in as evidence, and I guarantee if she had, the outcome would have been different. But she just had it in for me. I didn't find out until 15 years later that she was very biased against women and really favored the guys. So, and to this day, I still don't know why for sure, but it doesn't matter. So anyway, during the trial, maybe it was at the beginning of the trial or the end of the trial, I think it was the end of the trial, she said, just because this is your first offense, don't think you can't get the maximum sentence, which was 20 years. And yeah, that kind of got drilled into my head right away. And I don't know, it scared the crap out of me, because I am not the kind of person that could deal with prison. I don't know how I would have survived. But anyway, so during the I'm going to skip past the trial and go right to closing statements. My attorney was giving his closing arguments, and the judge looked at the jury and she shook her head no. And then the DA got up to give her closing arguments, and the judge looked at the jury and shook her head yes. She was totally trying to influence, she wanted the jury to vote one way, and that was against me. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to bring one more thing in from the trial, and that is that the therapist that saw my son for molestation, who was supposed to call Child Protective Services and never did, he was in as a witness for the prosecution. And he totally lied on the stand, and then he looked at me and he mouthed the word sorry. And I thought, you piece of shit bastard, because, as he's mandated by the courts, by his license, to report anything like that. And he didn't do it. And so, yeah, there was that. So that was against me. But I mean, all of this is being videotaped. So I'm sure somewhere there's got to be video of all of this that I would love to get my hands on. But it's not going to change anything. It's already over and done with. But it's like for my own satisfaction. It's too late to go back and sue anybody or do anything. So, and the judge, thank God, is no longer a judge. But she was, when I turned myself in 14 years later, she was still a judge. She was, in fact, supposed to retire until I turned myself in. And then she decided to sign up again for another 5 years. So, just to make my life a living hell. I truly believe that. So, anyway, the jury never got to see the doctor's report. They got false information from the one therapist. The other therapist that did see my daughter, who is the one that wrote this, report. She's not just a therapist, she's a psychiatrist. So she's a doctor. And she got up and told the truth, what I knew, from the doctor's report that I read. And it didn't matter. Had she had that report to back up her statement, I don't think the jury would have did what they did. But so after, I don't know if it was 5 or 7 days of a trial, the jury found me guilty of basically kidnapping my own kid, because they had no idea about they didn't know that the child molestation was true. They knew that that was the reason that I left, but they didn't know whether it was true or not, because they didn't have anything to back it up. So yeah, I was taken to jail immediately, and my mom bonded me out again, and so I had to go back to where I was living at my mom's, 1,000 miles away, and wait for the sentencing hearing, which was going to be a couple of months away. And I was supposed to come back and meet with my probation officer, or I don't know, somebody who does the pre-sentence interview. Basically, they're the ones that determine how much time I should get. And I knew nothing about the law. And anyway, so because the judge had threatened me with 20 years in prison, my mom and my husband, my Mexican husband, both were, drilling it into my head that you're going to go to prison for 20 years. You're not going to be able to help your kids. You're not going to be able to see your kids. So why go to prison? And they were both talking me into running again, and this time without my kids. And I'll tell you, that was the hardest thing I ever did. And I did. And because I don't know, I mean, between, my family telling me not to go and my fear of prison, it didn't take much convincing, honestly. So I did not come back to meet with the probation officer to, go over what my sentence should be. So I ran. My husband and I went back to Mexico, and and of course he was an abusive man. He, amazingly enough, was not abusive to me while my daughter was with us. In fact, he was the polar opposite. And then once it was just him and I, he changed into this, abusive man. I mean, he tried strangling me. He threatened me with a machete. It was not fun. And so not long after we got down to Mexico, I actually left him. And I went over to Puerto Vallarta. He was not in our house when I left. We were at his family's. The day that he threatened me with the machete, I kicked him out of the truck in the middle of this highway because I was terrified of him. And I just took off really fast. And I went home, and he went to his parents. And he never came home. And so I just sold what I could, and I packed what I could in our truck, and I drove to Puerto Vallarta. And I thought, at least people speak English there, and I won't, it won't be so hard for me to get around and figure stuff out on my own without him translating for me. And so, yeah, I went to Puerto Vallarta, and I spent, a couple years there. My mom was actually helping me financially, and nobody was tapping her phone anymore because I didn't have my daughter. So the FBI wasn't looking for me, which I didn't know. I thought they were. So we were trying to communicate incognito, kind of. Like if I called her and she heard my voice and I hung up, that meant that she should go to this payphone. She somehow got the phone number for me from this payphone, because there weren't cell phones. Well, we didn't have any cell phones back then. And so then she would go to the payphone and I would call her back at the payphone. Well, it turned out that was all for nothing, because they weren't. I just assumed they'd be looking for me again, So anyway, I'm staying in Puerto Vallarta, and my mom is sending me money, wiring me money to pay my rent. And in the meantime, I got a job bartending in the marina, and I also became a dive instructor, and so I was teaching dive lessons at this hotel during the day. And so that's how I was making money. But you only make, it was like 3 pesos a day or something. It was ridiculous amount of money. Maybe it was 30. It might have been 30 pesos, which was, it was 30 pesos, because it was equal to like $3 in American money back then, a day. So I did that for a while, and I stayed there for a couple years. And then my mom, she got scared. I don't remember why, but she got scared and she wanted to leave where she was and come down and be with me. And my mom had her own business. She was a nurse. She was taking care of Alzheimer's patients, and she just up and left the business, packed what she could in her van, and I met her at the border with this guy that I was dating at the time, and my mom came down there, and so now we were living there together, and basically she was on the run. I didn't know that she was still on probation. Oh yeah, I should tell you that when I went to court for this, my mom was sitting right next to me being charged with the same thing. because she didn't call the police, or she didn't call my son's father to have him come pick him up, and she lied to the police. So she basically got charged with the same thing I did, but only one count. I got charged with 2 counts, and then she got charged for obstruction of justice or something like that too. So she ended up having to spend like 20 days in jail, and then she was on probation, and I don't know how long that was for, but she left still being on probation, which I didn't know until she got there. And when she crossed into Mexico, she didn't even, you're supposed to stop. When you cross into Mexico, you're supposed to stop and show your visa, and or get a visa, I guess I'm trying to say, yeah. Show your ID, get a visa. And she didn't do that. And so she had to go back to the border with my boyfriend, and so they took off. It took them a whole day to get there and back. And anyway, so she ended up living down there with me, and life was not very good. After she came down there, she showed me a letter that my daughter had sent to me. My oldest daughter had sent to me while I was still in the United States, before I ran for a second time without my youngest daughter. And the letter, I just started bawling, and it was my daughter begging me not to go, telling me how much she needed me, and, please don't go, Mom. And I got really angry at my mom because she hid that from me, because I looked at the postage, the date on the postage, and she received it while I was still there, and she didn't show it to me. She hid it from me. And because she knew that I wouldn't leave. So we didn't get along very well after that. And anyway, about 6 months after she got there, I got an opportunity to move up into like the mountains between Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara, to open a restaurant. And so I did, and my mother came with me, and the first restaurant ended up actually not working out, and it never got opened because the guy that I was supposed to be opening it with, things just didn't work out. He wanted more than I wanted, and I thought it was a business opportunity, and he wanted a girlfriend opportunity. And so so I moved out of there, and we went and lived somewhere else, and I ended up meeting the mayor of a town, I don't know, a couple towns over. And at first I did not know he was married, but even later on I found out that he was married. So anyway, he bought all of the stuff that I needed to open my own restaurant. And so yeah, we ended up opening our restaurant. My mom and I, was called Las Gringas, and we sold American food. We sold Chinese or Asian food. Yeah, like Chinese. So anyway, we did that for a little while, and the restaurant wasn't making any money, and he was supposed to be giving me money to until the restaurant could start making money to keep us afloat. And when he didn't come for the longest time, he didn't come and see me, I had no choice but to close it down. And because I couldn't afford to pay for my cook. I would have been doing the cooking, but I had broke my my ankle before I opened the restaurant. And so, I was on crutches. And so it was just easier for me to hire somebody. And so that's what I did. And I don't know how long we were open. I mean, opening day the place was packed. I mean, and everything was free, It was free so that it was the grand opening. And everybody came and they ate and they drank. And then I had customers, that kept coming back, but it wasn't enough to sustain the business. So I closed and we moved from this town back over towards the ocean to a small fishing village where we got a house together. And things just weren't good there. I had met an American. So I went to work. Once we got to this village, I went to work in what's called a botanero. And basically that means it's a gentleman's club, but it's only open during the daylight hours. And it had a palapa and it was open air. So nobody was stripping or anything like that. It was just girl waitresses, and the guys could buy them drinks and they could actually sit down with them. So I was working there waiting tables. And I ended up meeting the police chief of the little town fishing village that we were in. And again, I didn't know he was married until later. They really like to hide that stuff from you. But yeah, we were dating, we were seeing each other on a regular basis. And he would come over to my house and my mom's house. And yeah, until I ended it, because I don't know, it was just too much. And I'd met this American guy at this botanero, and he was older than me, but he had given me his name and his phone number. And because I wanted to go back to the States, I wanted to go back and turn myself in, and my mom didn't want to. In fact, when we were living up in the town where I opened the restaurant, we met a lady. She was also an American. She was from the same state that I was, in trouble with the law in, and her husband was a lawyer. And so I asked her if she could call her husband. I told her the story, and I said, can you call your husband and ask him what would happen to me if I went back now? And she said, sure. And so she did. And my mom was tending to, this lady had a goat farm down there, and some of the goats were injured, I don't know how they got injured. But anyway, my mom was attending to her goats. And so the call came in when my mom was in the house and I was outside. And my mom answered the phone, and it was the lady's husband. And she intercepted the message and she relayed it to me, only she lied. She told me that if I went back now, I would go to prison for the rest of my life. And the lawyer said that I should just stay away. So that's what I did. And I had no idea, and I don't know why my mom, I know why my mom lied to me, because she didn't want to be in Mexico without me. And she was afraid to go back because she left while she was on probation. So yeah, she put the fear of God in me, and that kept me on the run for 14 years until I just couldn't take it anymore. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more into detail of how it all came about, that, me turning myself in, and more about what happened, what exactly happened to me while I was on the run in Mexico. So I'm going to end with that, and I'll pick it up on the next video. And yeah, thanks for being here. And if you want to continue to hear my story, be sure and subscribe, like, and set the bell notifications so that you don't miss an episode. Take care. Peace.